Corcovado is wild, it's remote, and it's packed with a ton of rare animals. But let's be real, it's expensive, it's hard to get to, and it can take up 3 to 5 days of your entire trip. So the question here is it worth all that effort? Today, we're gonna break it down with an overview of the main entrances, travel logistics, costs associated with the trip, when you should go, what to expect, and if it's worth it to stay overnight or just go for the day. Corcovado National Park is located in Costa Rica's Osa Peninsula, which sits to the south and on the Pacific side. One of the most biodiverse places on Earth, with an astonishing 2.5% of the entire world's biodiversity in only 160 square miles of untouched rainforest, beaches, rivers, and wetlands. It's one of the last strongholds for iconic animal species like the jaguar, tapirs, and anteaters, as well as so many more. This place is so wild, you can't just explore it on a whim, and that's where Peligro Life is coming to help. We're gonna help you build your plan so you can make the best adventure in Corcovado National Park. And as an added bonus, I'm gonna share a few of the things that I wish I had known before going that I had to learn the hard way through experience. Putting this guide together took a lot of time and work, and I really hope it helps with your adventure into the national park. Showing your support is as simple as a like or subscribing to the channel for more epic adventures. Now, let's jump into it with an overview of the main stations that you have to choose from. There are 5 main ranger stations in Corcovado, plus 1 bonus entrance that's worth knowing about. La Sirena is by far the most famous because it's so wildlife rich. It's also the only station that has rustic accommodation and you can spend the night there. This station is pretty much right in the middle of the park on the Pacific side. To get there, most people are going to take a boat either from Drake Bay or from Puerto Jiménez. For the more adventurous people, you can actually hike in. Most people start at La Leona station, which is about an 11-mile hike, and then they like to take the boat back. With wild animals, there's no guarantee, but on a day trip, we saw 3 species of monkey, tons of birds, sloths, crocodiles, caiman, snakes, and even a tapir. This is actually pretty common to have this experience, and if you want to see that goofy looking tapir, this is by far the best station to go to. San Pedrillo is located in the northwest. It's the second most famous station and it's closest to Drake Bay. You're gonna need to take a boat to get here, but the ride is not as long. San Pedrillo is great for day trips. It has short hikes and even a waterfall that you can swim at. People generally see monkeys, birds, and even poison dart frogs, but most guides will tell you it's not as wildlife packed as La Sirena. With that said, they do have a high density of pumas, and there are 2 juveniles that have been giving visitors some incredible photos and videos from a safe distance. On the south of the park, you can find the La Leona Ranger Station. You can actually drive here from Puerto Jiménez. It's a bumpy dirt road, but it has gotten better in recent years. Most people start here if they're gonna hike to La Sirena Station, but there are shorter day hikes that are out and back that you can do if you don't want to do the full 11 miles. It is hot and exposed, but it's still a beautiful place with less people and great wildlife viewing opportunities. The Los Patos Ranger Station is by far the most remote and least visited. It's located near a small town called La Palma, which you can have pretty easy access from the eastern side near Puerto Jiménez. Be warned, this station is best for serious hikers looking to enter the dense primary rainforest. If you do the full 13-mile hike to La Sirena Ranger Station, you're gonna cross the same river over 20 times and do about 1,200 feet of elevation gain. The payoff is in the views and the opportunity to see nature untouched. El Tigre. While technically not part of Corcovado, this place is still awesome. The Dos Brazos de Rio Tigre Conservation Association manages a small but challenging 4.5-mile loop that backs up to Corcovado National Park. This usually takes people between 4 and 7 hours, and you can even go on a gold panning tour because this is one of the few places in Costa Rica that you can find gold. Due to prospectors and illegal hunting, wildlife sightings are not as common as other stations in the park. On the plus side, it's an easy drive from Puerto Jiménez, no permit is needed, and there are a ton of free spots along the river that you can park and play. Last but not least, we give honorable mention to the Los Planes Ranger Station. This still shows up on SYNAC's website, but the park is closed and there's no proposed date of reopening. It's a bit of a bummer because this station is really close to Drake Bay and you used to be able to hike there. Now that we know a little bit about the stations, let's talk logistics. Most people choose to stay in either Puerto Jiménez or Drake Bay, both of which have small airports if you don't want to make the big drive. The drive to Puerto Jiménez is paved and we were able to see monkeys and toucans along the way. The drive to Drake Bay, well, that's a different story. Once you make it to the dirt road, it can be painful. They only fix the road once a year around February, and we went at the end of December, which was pretty much the worst conditions possible. We spent almost 2 hours driving only 20 miles and got so tossed around that parts of the truck started coming unscrewed. I do hear it can be a nicer drive when the road's not so washed out by the rain. Puerto Jiménez is a longer boat ride to the national parks than Drake Bay, but the town is a little bigger and has more places to stay, as well as things to do when you're not in the national park. On the other hand, Drake Bay is a phenomenal place for getting to diving and snorkeling locations like Isla del Coco and Isla del Caño. For most people, I highly recommend taking a boat to one of the stations. Not only is it a great chance to see animals like whales, dolphins, and sea turtles, but it's gonna save your legs and give you a little bit more energy for exploring the park. It's also fun to be on the water and admire the park from a different perspective. The convenience does come with its fee, and you're gonna pay a little bit more for your overall tour. Speaking of fees, let's talk about how much this is gonna set you back and how to book your trip. You can't just show up at Corcovado and go for a hike on your own. Daily entry is limited and you must book through a certified tour operator. They'll handle your permits, guides, and even transportation. A simple search online and you'll find a ton of great options. They're typically gonna ask for a deposit as well as the passport details of everyone going on the trip. And while it seemed really sketchy giving a deposit over PayPal, we had no problem. As a bonus tip, you can also pay the rest of your balance in cash to save a little bit on credit card fees. So what's it gonna cost? Day tours typically run about $150 per person. This usually includes your park entrance fee, the boat ride, a certified guide, as well as a meal when you get to the station. Most of these tours are gonna start really early at 5:30 a.m. and get you back by 2 p.m. An overnight stay is around $400 per person or more depending on how many nights you're gonna stay there. The benefit is that it includes your meals, your transportation, permits, and the guide. And no, it's not fancy. Think dormitory style rooms with bunk beds, cold showers, shared bathrooms, and no AC. Also, there's no outside food allowed and you have to bring in a reusable water bottle. Yes, you can drink the water here. The further in advance you can book a trip, the better. With that said, I was still able to book a trip for 4 people in high season with only about 20 days notice. So when should you visit? The standard answer is December through April, which is generally considered the dry season because there's a higher chance that you're gonna get a sunny day. But it is called a rain forest for a reason. I went the last week in December and the weather was a little cloudy but still dry. I've talked to a ton of guides about this, and if you want to see animals, they tell you to come at the beginning and the end of the rainy season, which means December and April are some of the best months to visit. Generally, I would say avoid October and November. That's when the rainfall is really heavy, and they had such intense rains this year that they closed some of the park due to flooding. If you're planning on hiking in, the rain can definitely add an extra challenge, so just be ready for it. But don't forget about the other seasons. Nature has their seasons too. Humpback whales, you might see them July through October and again December through March. Sea turtles, May to October is the best time. Your guide will be a wealth of knowledge and is great at spotting these animals. So do you really need to take a guide? Yeah, you do, because they're required to enter the park. And honestly, they're worth every cent. In Costa Rica, they have to be certified, which means they're well educated and they know their stuff. Most are going to be able to speak multiple languages. So in addition to Spanish, you might have English, German, Italian, and French. This allows you to choose the language for your tour that you're best going to understand. I think the coolest benefit to having a guide is that they all work together even though they work for different companies. This means when somebody spots a tapir over here, the guides talk to each other and help bring you to where the animals are, and you have a higher chance of seeing so much wildlife. The guides also know more than just the names of what you're looking at and can tell some wild stories. You're going to learn about plant species, local culture, and the history of this incredible national park. They know the trails well and how to give space between groups so that everybody can have their own experience with nature. They also come equipped with field guides as well as a high-powered scope that lets you spot all sorts of animals from way far away. And trust me, they are really good at taking epic shots with cell phones. All the guides I met are genuinely passionate about nature and found a way to make a living doing what they love. They do receive a portion of what you paid, but appreciate gratuity around 10%, which is pretty standard in Costa Rica. One of the biggest decisions you have to make is how long you want to stay. A one-day tour to La Sirena is fantastic. The wildlife is so dense, you don't even have to hike that far before you're seeing something incredible. You can enjoy a full morning and still have your afternoon free to go on another adventure or just hang out by the pool. The cost is also substantially less, and it's a great option for people that don't have that much time. On the other hand, the longer you stay, the more you increase your chances of epic wildlife encounters. A one-night stay will usually go on 3 full hikes, allowing you to explore more trails and iconic spots like the plane crash. You'll hear howler monkeys before sunrise, you'll beat the crowds, and you'll experience the rainforest when it's most alive. The maximum stay in the park is 5 nights. But realistically, 1 or 2 days is more than sufficient to cross Corcovado National Park off your list. So back to the main question, is it worth it? If you're into wildlife, remote adventures, and don't mind roughing it a little bit, yeah, absolutely. But if this is your first trip to Costa Rica where your time is tight, you want to stretch your money a little further, or you prefer luxury, you might want to check out other places like Manuel Antonio where you can get a taste of the rainforest while staying inside your comfort zone. The truth is, you can see incredible animals all over Costa Rica. However, there is nowhere else with the same density and adventure that Corcovado offers. It is truly the wildest place in Costa Rica and maybe all of Central America. As promised, here are a few bonus tips from my personal experience in no particular order. SINAC's website, which is the government website, is not as good as some of the travel blogs because it has a lot of outdated information on it. When you arrive by boat, it's a little chaotic and you're likely to get wet. So having some sandals or just taking off your shoes so you don't have to hike with wet feet is a really good idea. The ocean can be pretty rough on the boat ride, and sitting towards the back can kind of help smooth that out. Once you're on the beach waiting to get through the entry station, it can be a little chaotic. So making sure that you, your guide, and your group are very well organized will help get you into the park way faster. I was really surprised by how flat and easy the trails were. My guide even told me that I could have hiked in sandals, but I think having shoes was really nice. At La Sirena, in the middle of nowhere, they have a small museum packed with information, as well as a gift shop to buy souvenirs and even a cold ice cream on a nice hot day. If you have dietary restrictions, just be ready for a very basic rice and beans Costa Rican meal. Don't forget, book early, pack smart, and expect the unexpected. If you're up for the challenge, Corcovado might just be the highlight of your trip. Thanks for watching, drop your questions in the comments, and subscribe for more wild adventures with us at Peligro Life. Stay wild.